what would your reality be like to other people? A fundamental part of our existence is that we all have our own subjective experiences. With each of these perspectives, everyone develops their own way of coping and viewing the world. Some view it through a positive lens, while others use that lens to burn ants on a sidewalk. And then some have their lens broken. In these cases, delusions and false beliefs can often be a safe haven. In certain instances, the story that someone tells themselves can be so overwhelming that it becomes their reality. And when those beliefs fall in upon themselves, even a fictional paradise can turn into a nightmare. That is the story with Hello, Charlotte. Hello, Charlotte is a game series made by the developer Etherain spanning from 2015 to 2019. Each title has us accompany a young girl named Charlotte Wiltshire through various stories in a fantastical yet eerie world that lacks logic in favor of chaos. I first discovered this game in a pretty odd place. After an internet deep dive, I came across a Femcell forum back in 2020. Someone had posted art from the series and I found it interesting. Later that day, I ended up marathoning all of the games back to back, being stunned by the story and how little recognition this series had at the time. There are 3 games in the Hello Charlotte series, each of which harbors different themes. However, one common thread with each entry, especially the second and third, is that said themes tend to be dark, violent, gory, and have an emphasis on sensitive subjects such as mental health, self-harm, and suicide. It is up to your discretion if these themes are too overwhelming. Today we'll be discussing the first entry, subtitled Junk Food, Gods, and Teddy Bears. If you look online, this game doesn't get nearly as much discussion as the other 2. Part of the reason is due to the reliance on puzzles and its story becoming somewhat irrelevant in later entries. However, I think the story of the first game is worth discussing, if not for its connection to later entries, then for its own story. This game offers a broad introduction to a majority of the characters and some concepts that will be important to consider later on in the series, so it's a good starting point. Let's begin. We are given a brief introduction. My world met its end a long time ago. The humanity as I knew it has ceased to exist and disappeared without a single trace. The gods they believed in have died and churches were built as their graves. The chaos turned into order, and it finally became quiet. All I can do is dream, for I am so tired. Before I abandon the words that form noise in my head, will you be so kind as to join me in dream seeing? After this, we are brought to a white space with Charlotte front and center. We say hello to her, and she greets us back, asking for our aid. After another cutaway, we are brought to Charlotte's room. Right away, we can notice that things are strange. All of the color is drained, aside from a few things here and there. Details are scarce, and the music is incredibly eerie. Now is a good time to mention the player is an important element in this series. We act as a puppeteer, controlling Charlotte, influencing her choices, and giving her advice when she needs it most. She is aware of us and fully relies on our guidance to navigate her world. We can do a few things right away. Check Charlotte's inventory for items, save the game, and quit. Right now, Charlotte has a Book of Truth in her inventory, but we'll get to that soon. In Charlotte's room, we can interact with a few things. These colored squares are referred to as omnicubes. There is one that functions as a teleporter, and another one that provides some additional information on these screens we see, the omnicubes themselves, and the other tenants in Charlotte's house. Screens can provide us with some more context and information. Omnicubes are omnipotent cubes capable of storing, duplicating, or destroying data and matter. Oddly, we are given a warning not to put soap into one, as unforeseen consequences can occur. The tenants option provides us with a brief description of the other inhabitants of Charlotte's house. One entry is for Aiden, a butler whose hobbies include sewing and taxidermy. Another is for Huxley, a surgeon who owns an interdimensional clinic. And the last is for Bennett, a hazmat suit-wearing assistant of Dr. Huxley. This screen tells us to watch for puppeteer symbols, as well as stating that only people with the letter X in their name are capable of opening all doors in the house. I won't discuss every screen, just those that are important and provide relative context for the game. Exiting Charlotte's room, we come to a corridor. There are 3 rooms we can now access, a kitchen, a TV room, and a library. The last room is inaccessible for now. Charlotte said she was hungry earlier, so we head to the kitchen and get some food. On the kitchen table is a note from Charlotte's mom telling her that she's running late and to call a restaurant named Charlie's. Charlotte says this note is 8 months old. Heading to the library, we can use the phone on this desk and call in an order. Afterwards, if we approach the store in the library, we are required to give the magic word. Basic manners will tell us that it's please, but there is a book on the bookshelves that will clue us in if we need help. Entering the door, we find ourselves in a hallway. There are ladders on either side, one leading to the basement and another leading to the first floor. The door needs to be answered so we can get our food. Charlotte says that there is a strange hissing noise coming from the door and asks if we should open it. If you do, you are greeted by a handsome cockroach delivery boy who hands us our food. Heading back to the kitchen, we begin to eat when suddenly the other tenants of the house interrupt us. Aiden comments on the lackluster quality of the food, Huxley recommends that we eat wallpapers as they are rich in iron, and Bennett recommends that we eat soap instead. Charlotte comments that aliens don't seem to have a concept of personal space, afterward asking about the inaccessible room in the corridor. Aiden says that it's currently under construction, with Bennett chiming in that she should check it at nighttime. Bennett leaves to watch SoapNet in the TV room. Huxley requests that we come to the dissection room in the basement for a favor, and Aiden leaves without saying a word. Before accessing the basement, we need a key, which Charlotte left on her bedside table. After another obtuse question by the door in the library, we can access the basement. In front of this door, there is a little box that says, "Open me." If we do, everything is sucked into a singularity, ending the game. There are quite a few sudden endings and deaths that we can encounter in this game, similar to another one in the same style called the Witch's House. Ignoring this box, we can enter the store to find Aiden's tailoring room. Aiden has us try on a dress that he made called a white spotted jellyfish dress. Entering the next area over, we arrive in the dissection room with Huxley waiting for us. Before we see what he needs, let's take a look at these screens on the back wall. They introduce the Umbrella Man. The Umbrella Man is a very important character throughout the series, but his involvement in this entry is not nearly as prominent. He acts as sort of a G-Man or Agent Smith in this story, serving an unknown interest group. When Charlotte was younger, there was a figure that lurked in the dark corners of rooms, watching her with yellow eyes, not saying a single word. When Charlotte would attempt to tell her mother, the figure would raise a finger to its lips to signal not to talk about it. Charlotte would remain quiet. In Charlotte's Book of Truth, she labeled the entity as the Observer. After defining it, it spoke to her for the first time.
"Oh, that name is not bad, I must say. However, wouldn't anyone who watches over you become an observer?"
He remarked.
Then I'll call you the Umbrella Man.
Although I would have preferred a more euphonic name, let it stay this way.
Since then, Charlotte has given everyone in the house a distinctive name. The second screen tells us Charlotte's mom would notice Charlotte talking to herself, asking who it was she was talking to. She would lie instead of exposing Umbrella Man. The last screen talks about Charlotte's 10th birthday. In the middle of the night, the doorbell rang. Charlotte answered it, revealing a masked man wearing a top hat and a black suit in the doorway.
"Hello, little Charlotte."
Mother told me not to talk to strangers.
"I am no stranger to you. Human memory is so ephemeral, isn't it?"
Even if I do know you, you must be a bad guy.
"Me? Bad? Why so?"
That's because all villains wear top hats.
"Oh, is that so? What a silly prejudice. Don't let this appearance fool you."
With those words, the man took off the mask, as Charlotte thought the man was none other than the Umbrella Man himself.
"Although I'd love to chat with you on your most significant day of the year, I came for another reason."
Charlotte tilted her head, curious.
"Listen closely, little one. I came to inform you that a puppeteer has been assigned to you since you've reached the age of 10.
Who's that?
They are representatives of the True Realm, designed specifically to watch over your troublesome species. The one assigned to you is a Seth-type puppeteer. As for their purpose, they are here to guide you, the puppets, throughout your short lives.
Why would they do that?
You see, little one, free will is fiction."
Charlotte chewed on her words, trying to come up with a smart reply.
This choice of words must have been too difficult for a child. Let me put it another way. Meet your new friend who will watch over you. Their name is Seth. Don't bully them too much, okay?
With that, let's briefly go over the aforementioned Book of Truth. It explains the various concepts we just went over with the Umbrella Man story, such as the puppeteer, the observers, the puppets, as well as the aliens, who are the other tenants of the house. One thing to mention is the true and false realm. Supposedly, Charlotte lives in the false realm, whereas Seth, and by extension the player, supposedly, lives in the true realm. Again, the implications of this aren't well stated in this game, so we'll talk about it at a later point. Let's see what Huxley needs now. He asks for our help, watching over his nephew while he develops a cure for the eye plague. As Huxley describes, his nephew is a little too excited about scientific discovery for his own good. Yet he doesn't seem to have any direction, so someone needs to keep an eye on him. We are introduced to Felix, who gives off a cold demeanor right away. He joins us as we are now tasked to kill time. Since Felix has an X in his name, we can now access many more locations than before. To the right is a door leading to a small test lab. In this lab, there are 3 doors. If we open the right one, we get a prize. If we open the wrong one, we die. The door to the left of the initial test lab harbors a giant mass of organs and eyeballs used for organ supply and research. On the far left is a room filled with Bennett's crew, all of them wearing hazmat suits and having different names. The only one we can speak to is named Florence, who says that after putting dark matter into chocolate cake dough, they've improved its taste by 15%. Okie dokie. Returning to the ground floor, we can do a few other things, like mosey around the kitchen and check in on Bennett, who is emotional after seeing a couple in a show he's watched 1,037 episodes of confessing their love to each other. After exhausting all of the areas to explore in the house, we can head to Charlotte's room to wind down for bed. Felix doesn't need sleep, so he wanders off to the bathroom for some soap. Turning the lights off, we are approached by something slimy in the darkness. We can hide, but regardless, we discovered that it's simply Charlotte's pet cat, Magcat. Half maggot, half cat. He is kinda cute. Curling up next to Charlotte, they both fall asleep. In the middle of the night, Charlotte is awoken by a loud noise. Finding Felix missing, Charlotte investigates and finds that the inaccessible door is now open. Inside is a giant TV that's missing a glass panel, allowing her to step inside of the TV static. With no other place to look for Felix in the house, she steps inside. Charlotte looks around to find herself inside of a princess castle. It's incredibly dark, so she finds a lantern and begins exploring. There's a stairway with 2 rooms on either side. Entering the doors at the bottom of the stairwell, we find that both of them have this rope to pull, with the right room having a small hole which Charlotte can hear growling from. After pulling the rope in the right room, a teddy bear emerges from the hole and begins to chase us. If we get too close, Charlotte is mauled by the bear. Should we run to the other room and pull the other rope, the bear disappears, and we can go through the hole where the bear emerged from. There's a small kitchen area that has a hidden key, allowing us to enter through this door in the back. We arrive in a large hallway. A little girl with 3 eyes tearily looks at Charlotte. Charlotte asks the little girl if she is lost, to which she replies, "Aren't you lost yourself, big sister?" She states that her name is Freya, and promptly tells us to go away. There's a locked door to the right and a door to the left that leads to a few other rooms. One of them has a few bunny toys, which we can give to Freya in the main hallway. Freya is now more friendly and compliments us by saying that our eyes look like egg whites. Charlotte asks if Freya has seen Felix around anywhere, but she hasn't. The door on the right unlocks after this discussion, letting us progress forward. Going to the right, there is a room with 4 doors. Each of them has a different puzzle we need to complete. The door on the left is a cat room, where 2 cats sit beside a long table with 2 cups of tea on opposite ends. 2 fireplaces billow along the back wall. If we drink the tea on the right side of the table and then enter the left fireplace, we can walk through the fire and find a ring. If we walk through the other fireplace, we are burned alive. The door to the right is the bear room. Looking around, we can find a sci-fi almanac which we can take, a key, and a teddy bear that looks like it's ready to come alive any moment. After grabbing the key, the exit locks and the teddy comes alive. If we took the almanac, we can throw it at the bear and stop it from advancing to unlock the door. The door on the top right contains a snaking hallway. Reading the books in the bookshelves reveals that we are essentially in a Goldilocks scenario. Every room has different sized beds, chairs, and porridges. If we use any of these, Charlotte dies. Instead, we need to enter the center room to find another key, and then explore each room to gain access to an exit. We can jump through this window to leave. The last room is the mirror room. Using the key from the cat room, we unlock the door and find a mirror wedged between 2 bookshelves. There's a lever on the left side. If we look into the mirror before switching the lever, there is text that says, "The mirror shows the future," and we see an image of Charlotte with blacked out eyes. Switching the lever and then looking into the mirror, it instead says, "The mirror shows the hidden," and a passageway opens behind us. We can unlock it with the key from the bear room. It's just a hallway with a dead end. The screen glitches out, but there's nothing to do here. We come back out the way we came, and we are surrounded by teddy bears calling us a burglar. They let us choose the room we will await our punishment in. We can choose the lion room, which just has lions that eat Charlotte, the oxygen room, which has pure oxygen that suffocates Charlotte, or the torture room, which has a couple of couches and a TV. Entering the TV, we are dropped in a space between TV channels, with giant TVs acting as gateways to other areas. Seth, our character, is seemingly glitching, meaning we can't access the save menu and have to use save points from now on. The TV to the right has some colored bars, so we can enter it. We are teleported to a black and white world, with Felix directly in front of us. Approaching him, we can either hug him or head poke him out of annoyance. Felix tells us he decided to enter the TV to find an oracle. Oracles are godlike beings capable of creating small universes. Once in every several millennia, an oracle takes on a physical form. What he wants to do with it is unknown. Regardless, the goal now is to find a way out. This area has a few puzzles we need to solve. In front of us is a door missing a doorknob. These little black orbs are security drones, but thankfully they're harmless. If we interact with these boxes, some of them have negative consequences and can activate them. Other boxes have some additional items we can grab, like a BGM change and some art, as well as a black hole that will end the game. We can save with these grandfather clocks as a backup. Up these stairs are 2 doors. One of them is locked with a code, and the other leads to a very confusing maze of bookshelves called the Hall of Ignorance. Investigating these empty spots reveals the answer to the code number by number. One of the empty spots has a notebook with a small story in it. Once upon a time, there lived a tiny god. The tiny god created a tiny universe with tiny people. The tiny people created more tiny people and tiny things, engaged in tiny wars, and became tiny piles of dust. What this is meant to signify isn't entirely certain right now, but let's move on. Behind the door with the code, we have a room filled with more boxes. One of the boxes isn't moving in a similar pattern to the others. If we open it, we find the doorknob. Affixing the doorknob to the door we found earlier, we can head up these stairs, solving a puzzle to get one more code which we need to input at another door at the end of the staircase. That is a fucking mouthful. Charlotte doesn't remember the code, so Felix puts it in for her. The door buzzes and congratulates us before Felix is decapitated. Charlotte is mortified by this. She doesn't know what to do. She asks for our help when suddenly a person with 4 eyes approaches us. They tell us that no matter what, Felix was going to die somehow. Charlotte asks who this person is, prompting them to laugh and answer that they are a librarian. The librarian suggests that Charlotte leave this area and change the channel. We head through the TV in the next room. Charlotte changes the channel, and we end up back in a similar place. We can head to the maze again. This time it's called the Hall of Knowledge. Felix can be found here instead of the beginning of the area, investigating some books. Charlotte is relieved to see him alive this time, tearing up but holding back her emotions and once again adding him to the party. Heading into the maze, we can find the librarian, but they don't recognize us. This is seemingly another dimension, person, or timeline. Asking the librarian some further questions, they tell us that their name is Frey, and that they are technically male. The library is so empty because the other members of Frey's species would burn it down in a heartbeat, since having a book is a sin to them. Frey also explains that all books have to be rewritten, and the oldest book that they have in this library is a month old, which he is quite proud of. So Frey maintains this library to preserve history, as well as utilize the security bots to protect it. The puzzles from before are similar but changed in small ways. Instead of opening the box, we lift it up to find the doorknob. And the code is read in a different pattern for the door at the top of the staircase. This time, Charlotte opens it after telling Felix what happened when he tried before. The door opens with no issue, and the two proceed through the TV in the next room. The next area they come to is quite bizarre. The background consists of seemingly random patterns. A sign in front of us reads "No Way Out." There are 4 doors in this section. 2 of them are inaccessible, with one of them telling us to stick a needle in the eye. The other 3 have distinct names such as Space of Gore, Space of Abundance, and Space of Happiness. In the Space of Happiness, we need to avoid these masses of eyeballs and flesh to enter this room full of flower people. Talking to these 3 gives us cryptic information. One says they are afraid of meat and pomegranates, another says that meat is red, violets are blue, and the last says that flowers that have bad memories tell lies. That last piece of information is actually important, as when we talk to this group of flowers to the left, we find that all of them request a different colored box every time we talk to them, aside from this one who asks for a red box. Heading back to the main area, if we go into the Space of Gore, there are a bunch of pomegranates with eyeballs replacing the seeds. If we run into them... Alright, this flower person at the top just tells us to go away, so there's not much more to do here. The door closest to where we start from is now open, revealing some stakes waiting near a bunch of colored boxes. Taking any other box aside from the red one results in a game over. Taking the red box gives us a brooch and aggravates the stakes, causing them to chase us. Bringing the brooch back to the flower person who mentioned the red box, we get a fancier brooch, which we can use the needle of to poke the eye of the door that was blocking us, or we can wear it and talk to the flower lady who told us to go away. She was stuck in the Space of Gore because the pomegranates scared her so bad she couldn't move an inch. If we take her back to the rest of the flower people, she gives us some eye drops to use on the door instead. The next area we enter has 3 doors, one of which we cannot open. The door in front of us has a room with an incinerator and a locked door that will not open until one friend unit is deposited into the incinerator. To the side of this door, there is a sign that says "Caution, beware of the 3-eyed," and to the right of the sign is another door that leads to a maze. The duo decide the maze may have an alternative exit. To proceed through this maze, we need to have either Charlotte or Felix stay behind on this pressure plate switch and have the other character progress forward. If we choose Charlotte to go ahead and Felix to stay back, Felix gives Charlotte medical scissors and proceeds forward. There is nothing to find in this maze, as at the end of it is a collection of doorways that recursively lead into each other, getting Charlotte nowhere. She wonders how Felix is doing and asks us if we can head back to check on him. Backtracking, we find that Felix is missing. The inaccessible door at the beginning of this area is now unlocked, and a trail of blood leads inside. Opening it, we find Felix horrifically killed by a three-eyed woman, claiming that she was always curious about what little rabbits had inside of them, saying she's surprised it's not cotton as she holds Felix's organs. The girl then approaches us, putting her hand on our cheek. We tell Charlotte to run, and the girl says that they should play hide and seek. A 60-second timer begins. We run to the door behind the woman, only to find ourselves in another dead end. All of these doors in this hallway lead to each other, with no way out. Charlotte realizes she's going to die and asks for Seth to put her out of her misery before this girl can. If we do, Charlotte takes the medical scissors and stabs herself to death. As a result of this, Seth and the Umbrella Man discuss Charlotte's unfortunate demise. Umbrella Man scolds Seth for letting Charlotte manipulate him down the wrong path. Seth apologizes and asks for another chance, which Umbrella Man grants, adding that it is a little fun to watch them die over and over again, so he can do it as many times as he likes. Having Charlotte stay behind this time, Felix heads through the maze. As he's about to approach the dead-end room, Seth checks back in on Charlotte. Charlotte is approached by a man wearing a mask that has some eye slits. The man asks what Charlotte is doing all by herself, saying it's a pity that Felix won't be back before she meets her death in 10 minutes. Charlotte, not caring about the fact she is about to die, is instead upset that Seth will get in trouble for this. Charlotte also asks if Felix will be okay, and the man says that his death will occur shortly after. However, he offers Charlotte a way to save Felix. He leans in to whisper something in her ear. Charlotte agrees, with the man questioning why she would agree to what he proposed even if she doesn't approve of it. Charlotte says she can't do anything alone, and that it's the only way to save him, so it's the only option that she has. Sometime later, Charlotte wanders through the beginning portion of the maze. Her eyes are yellow, and her demeanor is drastically different. Checking what she has on hand, she finds these scissors and comments on how it's a shame she'll be getting her dress dirty. The three-eyed woman comes by, asking again to play hide and seek. Charlotte agrees to play a game and then stabs the woman with these scissors multiple times. After this sequence plays out, Charlotte comes to only to find that she has killed the three-eyed woman. Horrified by this, Charlotte defeatedly sits on top of the corpse and laments. Felix heads back to Charlotte to find her missing. The door to the incinerator now has a trail of blood leading to it instead. Entering, Felix finds Charlotte by the incinerator, covered in blood and shoving something in. Charlotte says she just found some meat chunks while they were gone, even though she's covered in blood and seemingly trying to get off the subject. They proceed through the door with Felix noticing that Charlotte is spacing out. Felix offers his hand to Charlotte, which we can choose to hold. Felix notices that Charlotte is shaking in fear. Through the door is another TV. Entering into the space between channels, another TV illuminates. Felix and Charlotte approach, and Charlotte asks what Felix was trying to do by finding the Oracle. Felix explains that there is a race of people called Pythias who were originally created by the Oracle, who they refer to as their god. Pythias themselves are very powerful beings who can alter reality and potentially create different dimensions. Every species perceives them differently. The last time Felix visited, there were many more, but strangely they've barely seen any along the way. This explains quite a lot so far. All of these different areas we've been exposed to have been the creation of various Pythias. For instance, the Teddy Bear channel was the creation of Freya, the silent film world was a creation of Frey, and the area we just explored was created by the three-eyed Pythia, whose frame of mind was clearly damaged. The seemingly random flavor text described different facets of her personality, and subtle changes in the area were the result of her conscious shifting. The next area holds quite a different story. A sign in front of a pathway filled with red liquid says, "Contamination warning, organic tissue ahead." On every news section we come across, we find dead Pythias. They litter the area, and everything is eerily quiet. Coming across some buildings, we find that each of them has been labeled as a slaughterhouse. The first one we come across has some bow saws on the table. Inspecting it brings up an advertisement saying, "Enjoy the vacation with style." Charlotte asks if we can take it, but we refuse. There is a poster on the back wall that says, "Ways to find out if your neighbor is possessed by God. Number 1. Shoot him and see what happens." The building over has a save point and another poster that says, "She is us, we are her." The various other buildings are barren, simply having the corpse of dead Pythias strewn about. Some are inaccessible, requiring codes or otherwise being locked. Some of the buildings have peculiar configurations and signage that clue us into the code we need. One building in particular seems to not have any windows. If we enter, we are swarmed by beings with the same mask as that strange man from before. If we instead take the code we discovered and put it into this door, we find a room with these executioner masks. Putting them on will disguise us against these beings, allowing us to progress forward. This leads us to a room with yet another code which we can enter into this door, and trust me, we're close to being done with all this puzzle shit. Entering the code, we can enter the slaughterhouse that has a litany of posters and a few doors. From the posters, we can ascertain more information. I'll read off some of the more significant ones. Feeling oppressed? Your life is a wreck? You did nothing wrong. Get your revenge by joining the God Hunt today. Become an executioner today. Everyone is born to execute. When you can't sleep, don't count sheep. Count on your chainsaw. Behind this door is a giant mural depicting what the Pythias perceive as an oracle. Felix points out that it's just a young Pythian priestess and not the oracle itself. All Pythias are an extension of the oracle, so this makes sense. Behind another door, Felix hears some movement. Entering, we find a pile of Pythia corpses. However, one of them is still alive and speaks to us. Initially, they think we are an executioner due to our masks, but after Charlotte and Felix take them off and begin to explain they aren't there to kill the Pythia extends a hand to Charlotte's face. The Pythia then observes that the duo are simply travelers. This confuses Charlotte, but Felix shushes her, explaining that they are speaking to a real oracle. The body we are speaking with is just a dying vessel. The Pythia remarks that Charlotte seems to be a good child, mentioning that they may have met her parents once, before coughing up blood. The Pythia tells us to leave, as the vessel they see cannot be saved and they are in danger. We leave the Pythia to die, returning to a door near the entrance of this building that leads to another TV. Hopping between channels, one last TV illuminates. Before entering, Felix apologizes to Charlotte for getting her into this whole mess. Felix just wanted to impress Huxley by writing a paper on the phenomenon of the Oracle. However, he was much too late. Charlotte comforts Felix by either playfully scorning him or hugging him, noting how it doesn't matter since everything everyone does is ultimately meaningless. She compares everyone to worms or maggots, such tiny insignificant beings. But even in spite of this, she points out that everything we do is just to benefit ourselves. Jesus. We arrive in a white space with multiple TVs strewn about. In front of us is a giant TV with the face of a female Pythia, welcoming us. This is yet another vessel of the Oracle, so I'll refer to it as such. The Oracle asks if we enjoyed the show, mentioning that there used to be a nearly infinite number of channels, but most are just recordings of their former states. The duo asks what happened to cause all of this. The Oracle recalls that a long time ago, they were referred to as a god, though they never technically were one. Their creation, the Pythias, decided to go against them, hunting down those who worship the Oracle and any potential extension of the Oracle's power. In doing so, their creation slowly and unknowingly destroyed itself. The universe the Oracle inhabits is falling apart, and only the memories of the past survive. Soon enough, even that will fall apart and all will be lost. Charlotte is not happy about this, since Felix and her need to get back home soon. The Oracle says that there is a potential solution, and requests Charlotte's assistance. Charlotte approaches the TV, putting her hands on the screen. The Oracle places her hands where Charlotte's are. Charlotte doesn't remember much of what happened next, but she allowed the Oracle to inhabit her body. Everything she was became the Oracle, and everything the Oracle was became Charlotte. They began to walk home hand in hand, watching as the universe they were leaving behind ceased to exist. All the channels began to switch off, and Charlotte returned home with Felix. The next scene has Charlotte and the Umbrella Man talking on a couch in the TV room back in the house. Charlotte explains the events that transpired, mainly how the Oracle used her body as a vessel and all her remaining power to return her and Felix home. Surprisingly, not a second had passed in her original world while they were gone. Umbrella Man is intrigued by this story, noting how lucky she was to run into an Oracle, even if it was dying. Charlotte asks about the strange man who came to her after Felix left in the maze, and what happened afterwards since she only remembers waking up with the corpse of the Pythia under her. Umbrella Man remarks on how naive Charlotte is, mentioning how they had to edit her source code as she came back so that she wouldn't retain what happened to her while she was in a trance. The forces that be do not want her to fail her education program, or school, and so memories of murder are unnecessary for her. In all reality, what happened is that the Umbrella Man took over Charlotte's body, and then after the deed was done with the three-eyed Pythia, she gave Charlotte access back. The Umbrella Man is also surprised that Charlotte is capable of harboring a godlike entity without her body collapsing. Charlotte thinks that it's due to the fact the Oracle is too weak to do too much damage. The Oracle is currently asleep, so there really isn't much to worry about for now. The Umbrella Man asks Charlotte if she thinks that the Oracle will care about her existence once it wakes up, since it is essentially a god capable of creating life from zero inside of a tiny girl's body. This whole thing was just a bid by the dying god to keep itself alive, so when it wakes up, who's to know what happens next? Charlotte quips back, asking why the Umbrella Man is so interested in her then. Umbrella Man acknowledges the irony of the situation and then tells Charlotte to take her pills and go to sleep. Before we do, we can check Charlotte's inventory and see that the Book of Truth has a little more information in it this time, with an entry on the executioners which provides very little information, as well as the Pythias. The males are referred to as Frey and the females as Freya. They are a very dangerous Type 4 civilization species. We're lucky there weren't many we came across. If we check the pills we're given, the description reads Abilify, 100 mg, 30 tablets. Abilify is a medication used to treat major depressive disorder, bipolar I disorder, and schizophrenia. After taking it and leaving the TV room, we see that everything is normal. Returning to all rooms of the house, we find that everything is as it should be in a contemporary home. The TV has a few couches and a flat screen. The kitchen has a bowl of fruit and a letter from Charlotte's mom. The foyer doesn't have any oddities, and the library is as expected. The location of various rooms also shifted around a bit too. Charlotte heads to bed, and that's the end of episode 1. So what the fuck? Charlotte Wiltshire is a very mentally ill little girl who engages with her delusional reality to a very confusing degree. The inhabitants of the house, as well as everything we just saw, are either entirely fictitious or are allegories to real-world events. However, trying to compare what we witnessed to what could have happened in reality doesn't make much sense. In Charlotte's reality, she woke up in a world stripped of important details, with everything being replaced by her imagination's horrifying capabilities. There are other inhabitants she spoke with in the house despite being entirely alone. The delivery man for the food she ordered was a cockroach, and the house itself expanded way past what it was capable of possibly harboring. We explored an alternate dimension that contained an insanely powerful, godlike being called an oracle, capable of creating dimensions and thus life to inhabit it. The particular dimension we visit, which some in the community call Delphi, others call the TV land, sees the end of the oracle's lifespan, as the species it created, the Pythias, have struck out against the oracle for one reason or another. Every channel we visit is likely the creation of various Pythias we come across. However, they are likely remnants of the past, as mentioned by the oracle. This would explain the librarian, Frey, being somewhat malevolent in one instance and being cordial in another. The Slaughterlands were likely a recording of the executioners hunting down the Pythias that had a connection with the Oracle. In a bid for its existence, the Oracle made a deal with Charlotte to return her to safety in exchange for Charlotte to allow the Oracle into her body, thus allowing the Oracle to stay alive. There is reference upon reference in this game. The Pythia, which I've been pronouncing wrong the whole time, was the name given to the high priestess of the Temple of Apollo in Delphi in ancient Greece, otherwise known as the Oracle of Delphi. As such, the Oracle and the Pythia are one, which we can see is a very similar situation in-game. Past this point, though, there isn't much more context to be spoken of. Why the Pythias rose against the Oracle isn't entirely certain, aside from some perceived wrongdoing. Charlotte's well-being is in the air as she hosts the body of a dying god. The Umbrella Man, Felix, Huxley, Aiden, Bennett, and Seth are figments of Charlotte's imagination as far as we are aware. And there's a solid chance that everything we just witnessed was just a schizophrenic episode. Or was it? We have 2 more entries to go. Along the way, questions will be answered, more questions will be asked, and I'll have to spend many hours playing the games, reading the wikis, and questioning my own reality. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. If you'd like to see more content like this, please be sure to subscribe. I'll be covering the other 2 games in this series, as well as a host of other strange and obscure titles. I already covered one other game previously entitled Crypt Worlds. Be sure to give that video a look over. Also, the Hello Charlotte video on my channel from a few years ago, it's outdated. There's so much more to the story than what leads on in that video. We'll just have to cover it at a later date. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.